Hello and welcome back. Today we're going to be doing our full review of the ChargifyEV electric vehicle charging station. ChargifyEV is an EVSE startup that's based in Austin, Texas. And that's also where they manufacture these units. So it is made in the USA, and that's something that some of our followers ask us, which units are made in the USA. This is a newcomer onto the scene, so we're going to give it our full review, including our cable deep freeze test. We're also going to add up the points on our ChargerRater and see just how good this new entrant is. But first, don't forget, please, if you like what we're doing here on State of Charge, including our electric vehicle reviews, EV charging station tests and reviews, please tap that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you don't miss any upcoming content here on State of Charge. Okay, well, I guess the first thing to do is open her up and see what comes in the box. All right, so here's the unit. It's feels like a polycarbonate box. Yeah, this isn't metal, but it seems like it's well constructed. It's relatively compact, pretty small, kind of similar in size, I'd say, to the United Chargers Grizzle E, which is a good compact unit. It comes with a 24-foot cable that is relatively thin. It's not too thick, probably a little bit thicker than, say, the Tesla wall connector cable is. It's actually very similar to that. It might be the same size, if not just slightly thicker. And it has a really nice connector. This is a Phoenix contact connector, which is one of my favorite ones on the market available today. It's got a nice feel to it. Good tab on the top, very well made. Connector's really good. It's a good connector. 24-foot cable, as I said, not too thick, so it should be pretty easy to manage. We'll have to see how well it does in our cable deep freeze test. And it comes as a plug-in unit only with a NEMA 1450 plug and a very long dongle here. It's about 2 feet long, much longer than what you normally get on most electric vehicle chargers. They're usually somewhere around 12 to 14 inches. This is a really long cable, which is good. It makes it easier to locate where your plug is. If the electrician doesn't put the plug exactly where you want it, you can still mount this unit. It gives you a little bit of play. Take a look on the back here. It looks over where you mount it. We're going to go into that next. It comes with 5 screws, kind of thin, weak screws, to be honest with you. Usually the mounting screws on these charging stations are a little bit more robust than this. We like to make sure that they're mounted really well on the wall because sometimes these can get tugged. You don't want to pull it off the wall. And it has a cable management hook. Doesn't come with a connector holster, which is a negative, and it's going to lose a couple points on the ChargerRater because of that. Those that watch this channel know that I'm big on holstering the connector when it's not in use. I don't like to have the connector just hanging and dangling. Dust gets blown in there. This is in people's garages most of the time. I mean, especially if this is located outside. Do not leave your connector just dangling in the air if you have your charging station mounted outside. If it's in the garage, you can get away with it, but if you're like me and you do a lot of work in your garage, like cut wood and whatever, there's dust in the air, that stuff all filters and gets into these little pins, and moisture can get in there, and over years, it really fouls the pins, and you can have problems with your connector. So I always recommend holstering the connector, and I always expect the charging stations to come with a connector holster. This one doesn't. It just comes with this hook that you can hook the cable around. Now, you can buy relatively inexpensive connector holsters on Amazon. I actually have a few that I recommend, and I'll put them in the description of this video. I'll put links to them so you can pick one up if you'd like. They're really not expensive, usually less than $20. There's a couple really good ones that has a connector holster as well as a cable hook on there. So that's a negative. We like to see connector holsters, and ChargifyEV does not give you one. All right, next up, let's take a look at how you install the ChargifyEV. So on the back of the unit, you'll see the mounting bracket here. This comes attached to the unit, so you have to unscrew with a regular Phillips screwdriver a screw on the top of the unit, and then remove one on the bottom. Once these two screws are off, the mounting bracket should slide right out, and then you mount that on the wall. And I say should. It doesn't. Matter of fact, it's really tight in there. So I found that I need to get just like a flathead screwdriver to kind of pry it out to get enough so it's really tight. It doesn't just slide right out. So not that that's negative, but just for you to be aware. Now you would take this bracket now and mount it on the wall, then slide the unit back on top of it and attach the two screws that I just removed. I'll do that now and we'll jump back when the unit is mounted on the wall. Okay, so we have the unit mounted to the wall. I also installed the cable holder here, but as you can see, the connector is just dangling out in the air. It's unprotected because it doesn't have a connector holster, which we definitely recommend, as I said before. We have it plugged into a NEMA 1450 outlet. Now the ChargifyEV comes in a 32 amp and a 40 amp version. We have the 32 amp version because the 40 amp version was out of stock when we ordered one for our review. And the 32 amp version will deliver up to 7.7 kilowatt. You need to have it installed on the minimum of a 40 amp circuit, but the NEMA 1450 outlet here should be installed on a 50 amp circuit. You can install it on a 40 amp circuit by code if you're only going to be drawing up to 32 amps, but we always recommend pulling a little bit of a thicker wire and putting it on a 50 amp circuit. That way you have a little bit of leeway in the future if you get charging equipment that can deliver up to 40 amps, like the 40 amp version. The 32 amp version that we have here will add somewhere between 20 and 35 miles of range per hour of charging to an electric vehicle, depending on how efficient your EV is. The 40 amp version will charge a little bit faster because that can deliver up to 9.6 kilowatts, and you're looking at somewhere between 25 and 45 miles of range per hour added. Again, it's all up to how efficient your EV is and how far it can go on every kilowatt hour it has stored in the battery pack. Now, another thing we want to point out is you notice there's a green light on the front of the unit there. That means the unit is ready, but not actively charging. If the unit was charging an EV, the light would be blue. And if there was some sort of a fault detected, the light would be red. Now, there's also tamper-proof Torx screws on the front to open the case. There's also little stickers over them that say void. So if you open the case, you void your 3-year warranty. It comes with a 3-year warranty, which is pretty much the industry standard. So why would you want to open it up? You probably don't want to open it up, but maybe troubleshooting if there was an issue and you were out of warranty, but then it wouldn't matter because the warranty is void. If you're under warranty, don't open it up and try to fix it yourself. Call them up, send it back, get a new one. Or the only other reason I could think of is some people prefer to hardwire their electric vehicle charging equipment. This comes with the plug. And if you want to hardwire, what you have to do is open up this case and remove this and then attach the hardwiring, which is a very simple operation to do. You can't do that and maintain your warranty. That's a little bit of a bummer. Why would you want to do that? Well, maybe if you're installing this outside. And you can get waterproof and weatherproof enclosures for NEMA 1450 outlets. They do sell them, so that's not out of the question. But some people just prefer having it hardwired if it's mounted outside or even inside. If you want to do that, you're going to be voiding your warranty, so that's something to consider, which we're going to do now anyway. We're going to void the warranty and open it up and take a look inside. Okay, so the screws are off now. Let's take a look inside. Okay, as you can see, first off, there is a wire that connects the board to the LED light on the front. So we're going to have to hold this out there, and let's take a look at the rest. So here's where the NEMA 1450 plug is. If you really wanted to hardwire this, this is what you have to remove. Again, please don't do this by yourself. Get a licensed electrician to do this to make sure it's done properly and all the connections are really tight so you don't have any problems down the road. You'll also notice, what's interesting, this Ethernet cable here that's plugged into the board. There's an Ethernet port on the bottom here. Now this isn't a Wi-Fi connected smart charger. Well, not yet at least. ChargifyEV tells us that very soon, they actually said in early 2022, they were going to have an option to add Wi-Fi to the units, and you would have a Wi-Fi connected smart charger. Now, we don't know what smart charging features it's going to have yet. They haven't announced that. But right now, we can hook an Ethernet cable up to underneath the unit and plug it into a laptop or your computer and go to the ChargifyEV site, and there's supposed to be data there that you could view. We're going to check that out in a little bit. I have no idea what they show you, what data is available, but that's what this is for, which is interesting. And coming soon, you'll be able to buy the unit, and the same unit as this, except it'll be Wi-Fi capable, and you'll be able to use the Wi-Fi to directly link to the portal. No word yet on if they're going to have a smartphone app. We will ask ChargifyEV and try to get that straightened out, but as of now, I think it's just the online portal that they're talking about. So that's how it looks inside. It's, you know, basic, pretty clean, not a lot going on in there, which, you know, typically is the case with these electric vehicle charging stations. There's not a whole lot that they do. They're really just basically safety devices that allow you to plug your electric vehicle in and charge it safely. I mean, that's what these are called, charging stations. Some people call them chargers, but they're not really chargers. The chargers are always built into the electric vehicles. It's called an onboard charger. We call these EVSE, which is electric vehicle supply equipment, because really what they do is just supply electricity to the electric vehicle safely. And that's really its main purpose. It's just a safety device to make sure while this isn't in use, you could stick your finger in here and not get shocked. The connector's never energized until it plugs into the vehicle. There's a communication process that the car talks to the EVSE and says, okay, I'm plugged in, it's safe to energize. How much energy do you have? How much energy do you want? There's a quick communication there, and then you'll hear a click on the car side, probably in the charging station side, and it's energized and it starts charging the vehicle. But really, there's not a lot going on in there because it's just really a big safety device to make sure you can charge safely. It's time for everybody's favorite part of the review, the cable deep freeze test. Inside this ice cream chest, I put the ChargifyEV charging station last night, about 14 hours ago. It's been deep freezing at below 0 degrees Fahrenheit for over 14 hours now. Let's take a look and see just how cold it is in there first. Negative 14 degrees Fahrenheit. So yeah, it's cold in there. So I put the unit in there. I wrapped up the cable in tight loops. We're going to take it out now and unravel the cable and see how easy it is to bend. We do this for people that live in the northern states, cold area, places where they install their charging station outside. It's not in a garage that's a little bit warmer than outside. It gives you an idea of how manageable the cable's going to be when you're dealing with this in the winter and the charging station's been outside overnight. It's really cold. You come out in the morning, you want to unplug the vehicle and see how easy it is to manipulate the cable. So let's take a look and see how well this cable did. Okay, let me cut off the cable ties. All right, so what we have here is, it's pretty stiff, but the fact of the matter is, it's such a thin cable that even though it's stiff, you can bend it. That's not always the case when the cables are thicker. The cable actually isn't performing that well. It's frozen and pretty stiff. The jacket isn't really rubberized really well. But the fact that it's so thin does allow you to maneuver it. So, you know, we try to roll this back up or unroll it and then put it on the cable holder in larger loops to see how well it bends. As you can see, it's trying to maintain the smaller loop, but actually it's doing okay. Not terrible, but again, I think that's more of a case of the fact that it's a thin cable and it allows you to have your way with it. It's not really very bendable. It's just that it's thin and you can kind of overpower it. So it's not going to cost at any points, but it's not going to get any extra points for having a very flexible cable. We wouldn't say that this isn't a good charging station to use outdoors. We actually would say that you could definitely use this outdoors. It's not the best performing cable we've seen, but it's good enough to say, hey, yeah, we would recommend this for outdoor use in cold weather climates. So the cable didn't do that bad in our cable deep freeze test. It wasn't very pliable, but because it's so thin, it was easily bendable. So we'd recommend this for outdoor use. Additionally, the casing is NEMA 3R rated, which isn't the best for outdoor weatherproofing, but it's fine and it's okay for outdoor use. So if you did want to install this outside in an area that gets inclement weather, you'd be fine doing so. So that's it for the basic review. The only other thing I want to add is I mentioned earlier that we were going to hook the Ethernet cable up to the port underneath the unit and log in and see what type of data that you can access. I tried, I hooked it up to my laptop. I tried to register the product. I was having a little difficulty registering the serial number. It could be because this is a loaner unit and maybe they haven't assigned that serial number to an owner. I'm not really sure, but I was able to create the account, but then I couldn't add this unit as my charging station. So unfortunately, I'm not able to show you what type of data that you can view from the online portal. But I did ask ChargifyEV about that, and what they said basically at this point, the only thing it really shows is the date and the amount of energy dispensed during the charging session. So there's not a whole lot there, so I didn't think it was really worth my time to really try to figure out what was going on and correct it and show you what you can see and what you can view from the online portal. The big news is that they're going to be upgrading this to a Wi-Fi enabled unit soon, early in 2022. I think that'll make it a lot easier to access the portal, and perhaps we'll revisit the review at that point if there seems to be some new information that's worthwhile in showing. So that's it for the review. What's next is the scoring. And for that, we first go to the ChargerRater. The ChargerRater has 5 different categories: cost and value, power and weatherproof rating, construction and durability, smart and non-smart, and safety certified and warranty. In the first category, cost and value, the ChargifyEV does well and gets 18 points because the 32 amp version here that we are testing only cost $399. That's a really good price for a 32 amp charging station. The next category is power and weatherproofing. It scores 14 points. For construction and durability, it also gets 14 points. For smart and non-smart, it's not a smart charger. It only gets 15 points. Safety certified and warranty, it takes a big hit. The ChargifyEV is not safety certified and it loses 5 points because of that. It does get 2 points because it has a 3-year warranty, and it makes the total in the safety certified and warranty category for 12 points. That gives it a grand total of 73 points. When we convert that to a 5-star rating, the ChargerRater score is 3.65 stars out of 5. I then average in my own personal score, and I give the ChargifyEV a 3.75 stars, slightly more. When we average the 2 scores together, the total is 3.7 stars out of 5 for the 32 amp ChargifyEV home charging station. The 40 amp station will score slightly higher. It'll get 3.75 stars as its total score. That's because it does deliver 9.6 kilowatts more than the 32 amp version, and it doesn't cost that much more. It's only $20 more. So we think that's probably a little bit of a better purchase. That is, of course, if you're comfortable with buying a home charging equipment that's not safety certified. Now, the components on the ChargifyEV are safety certified. The plug, the cables, they have the UL listings on them. But once that's all put together as a whole unit, it needs to be certified, and it's not. ChargifyEV is a startup, and they simply don't have the funds at this point to safety certify the unit. It costs $50, $60, $70, $80,000 sometimes to get UL certification for an electric vehicle charging station. And for small startups that are just trying to get off the ground, it's just too much for them. We've seen this in the past where for the first year or two, new startup companies like eMotorworks that developed the juice box that NLX now owns, and even the United Chargers Grizzly, when they launched, they were not safety certified, but a year or so down the road, they became safety certified. They went through UL certification. So that's really on the buyer to decide what you're comfortable with. It seems to be a well-made unit. I took a look inside. A friend of mine who's an electrical engineer always takes a look at the units for me to tell me if there's any kind of glaring issue inside that he thinks there isn't. He didn't see any issue on it, but again, it isn't safety certified, so you have to take that into consideration. It does have a good price, $399 for the 32 amp version, $419 for the 40 amp version. So it is relatively well priced for what you get. It's a good 24-foot cable. The cable's relatively bendable, flexible. It's not thick. It's not hard to really maneuver. It's got a good connector. The case seems like it's well made and is going to withstand any type of inclement weather. So it's a decent product. There's room for improvement, but I think it's a good first shot for ChargifyEV. And for that, we're giving it our final score of 3.7 stars out of 5 for the 32 amp unit, 3.75 stars out of 5 for the 40 amp unit. Thanks for watching, and don't forget, click that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you don't miss any upcoming content here on State of Charge.